We're back, and it is time for Optic versus North. North America taking on a Danish roster that's made a roster change that has got a lot of fans up in arms and excited. Indeed. We'll start that discussion really by introducing the panel that will be guiding you through it. It's Duncan Thorin Shields, Jason Moses O'Toole, and of course Chad Birchall / Spun J.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm there for you. We're going to start with you just because I've kind of hurt your feelings with that one. Which roster do you find more exciting on paper? This is an intriguing one. Optic or North with AZ?
North, definitely.
Okay, how so?
I think that the AZ edition is a really good one. The argument for Rubino being a really good support player, I agree with all that kind of stuff, but I think the way that AZ is going to be introduced into the team, now that we've heard that Config's going to give up room for AZ, even though I don't agree with that, I think Config's probably a better player than AZ, it's still going to be a very powerful lineup. When you have Cajun, AZ, Magix, and who have I missed? Config. When you have those four players, they're all super talented. All MSL has to do is basically push his pieces around the board and he's going to have success. And I was actually saying yesterday, I think that MSL can start to be more selfish as an in-game leader and set himself up in maybe easier positions or places where he can get more frags because he has so much talent around him. So that's going to bolster his playstyle as well, I think. And
of course, I mean, following on from that, Jason, I'm going to ask you the same question. Are you joining the kind of better on paper train of saying North or Optic?
I mean, I think I think the roster change of AZ coming in. I know, right? That was very much figuring out the words I'm going with here.
Waffles for breakfast.
No, the roster change of AZ coming in, I think, is very, very sexy paper to read. Because I keep thinking back to when he was in Dignitas Inclusion, he was like the hard carry. Like he was ridiculous. I remember that he averaged something like 70 kills over the 2 maps they played in that group stage, and they still got knocked out. It was literally like one of the great hard carry performances. But now, I mean, obviously you put MSL and you give him the time to really tool this team around. I think moving forward, they look like they're going to be a better team long term. But at the moment, I think there's still going to be some questions when you're shuffling rosters with this much talent.
Duncan, when MSL's being highlighted there, I think it's a great opportunity for you to just give us a little bit of insight behind the scenes of what MSL has been kind of up to this point. Because I mean, I remember not too long ago where we were sitting there taking the mickey out of him for trying to play the AWP. You know, like it wasn't that long ago, and now we sit here praising him and regaling him with the many stories of success.
Yeah, well, the thing about MSL is he's actually one of those guys where like the people who love tactical Counter-Strike have always kind of like had a soft spot for him, right? Even when he had lineups like the one where he had just Kirby was his only star player, Config hadn't really blossomed and was in kind of the wrong role, you know. Tensky was still in the lineup. In these lineups, he was never going to win an event. He was never going to get some really deep placings on any really regular basis. But he's the in-game leader where his old history was he always had the less talent, you know. Or Astralis took all the best players, or there weren't any players, or AZ was off in phase, you know. So what he always had to do was work with lesser talents, and he always managed to make that, you know, the old cliche of like more than the sum of their parts. You could take a few pieces that are all right and make a team out of it, one that could maybe upset people. This is why now, this is like a whole new chapter to his career for me, because when you add in AZ now he's in this scenario where he's working with all the talent, you know. He's got some of the best players in the world, and so he's got to be a very different type of in-game leader now. Now it's not about getting that guy and going, listen, people don't think you're a good player, so I'll mold you into my system. Now it's probably the other way around. He has to go, what is this guy's strengths, and how do I make that work in my system?
It makes a lot of sense. You've got not only the firepower, which Chad was singing the praises of, but also a leader who has been regarded as one of the best. And that's a real solid combination, of course, going up against Optic. Jason, starting with you, of course, when we start moving to North America. Now, word on the street is you might be putting a prediction in favor of Optic here.
I'm feeling rather patriotic today, Alex.
No, but this is where I'm going to do the teacher response. Justify your answer. Show me you're working.
No, I think this is actually a very, very cool team at the moment. I mean, obviously, I think Mixwell is one of the best players we have in North America. I think he's performing very, very well. You add to that this up level from Rush that he's now been consistent with. That's very impressive. Yes, I know Mixwell is not a North American at all.
Definitely Spanish.
But in the region, I mean, he's one of the best players we've got. And I definitely, if you look at it, he might even be the best performing AWPer we have in the region overall at the moment. So
tough crowd.
This is right. No, but this is good stuff. And actually, I very much like the T side they put together against Astralis yesterday on Nuke. I thought they did some very, very cool things. It's really the CT side of Nuke where that match kind of fell apart for them. They didn't really look like they were very coordinated. But the T side is very good. And then you add into something like Peacemaker. I think I cannot believe that he went without a job with all the North American teams that needed a coach. Like the fact that Cloud9 let him get away, the fact that Optic took so long to pick him up, I think is an egregious mistake for both of these teams. But now that he's here, I think he's going to have a lot to do with helping them bring in Hiko and at least see if that's something they're going to move forward with.
Now, I think what's intriguing discussion to start now, Chad, and coming back to the point you made way back in the pre-show, was regarding why the veto intrigues you, because it's on its way. I want to make sure we have some ample time to discuss and theory craft behind it initially. What's springing to mind when we start talking maps?
So
Best of 3, of course.
Yeah, both teams have big choices in the first phase. It's most likely Optic are going to ban Mirage, and then you're going to see the Cobble ban from North. Those are the two most likely bans. Then the choices are for North. They can either pick Nuke or Overpass. Do you go with the sure thing in Nuke? Or do you go with Overpass, which you're comfortable with? You know, you've got Magix who's really good on it, but that might be the third map as well. Or do you go with, this is for Optic, do they pick Inferno, which they've already beaten them on, but as MSL said, it was a Joker pick or a Joker map to let through, which is a risk for them now. You know, you've seen what they can do on it now. North can adjust, they can change things, and they could potentially come out on top. Or do you go with Cage, which is also another good map for North, but Optic are pretty comfortable on that one.
Still haven't seen a single cache. It's kind of crazy that we've got to our third day of play and not a single cache has slipped the net. Of course, best of ones at that point. But as the bans do come in, Chad has set the scene. I'll let Duncan get a couple of 3-pointers as we start with our...
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be a fairly obvious train ban, actually, from the North guys. Like, I think you can't really let that through. It's just a map that, for whatever reason, MSL doesn't want to play, so that's a pretty obvious one. But there's actually... Here's the thing. The guys from Optic really could go anywhere on this one. I think they probably will just stick with Mirage, because it's just been such a classic for them. And you know it's one that MSL would pick, because he just loves to play that map. But this is where it gets really interesting, because North could go, let's go with Nuke, especially because they saw Astralis just tool Optic completely on the map. But I can see a world where North go, let's play Cobblestone, even though we know that's a fantastic map for Optic, because MSL's a guy where he himself will pick maps, he just thinks that they're strong ones. So he's gone with a Nuke pick. I actually think with what's left at this point in time, if you want to go against the weakness, you do pick Cash at this point in time, which Optic always claimed that they think it's like their sleeper, kind of like hidden, really strong pick. But that was with the old lineup, so they've gone with Cobble as it is.
Wow.
That's the one they're going to take. Now, I think that's risky, actually, because even though I'd agree, if you ask me who's the better team, I'd probably say Optic's better on it, at least with the old lineup. But you've also picked a map that MSL's teams always like to play this map, you know.
Dropped off a little bit since the addition of Cajun, but historically,
I think Overpass is going to be the third one here. That would be the obvious one in my book, bearing in mind it's been left to Optic to choose that if they want, because, I mean, are you really going to go with Inferno as the third one? You certainly could do it and kind of like put the pressure on them to try and win 2-0, but...
it has been banned by North, and of course it was a 16-11 result on Inferno to Optic last time they played it.
I mean, the weird thing about this series at the moment is that if you're the guys from Optic, okay, you like Cobble, you like Cash, but if you're the guys from North, you like both the first two maps. So it feels like it's fairly clear as to where people should be winning the series. It should probably be North 2-0 or Optic 2-1. That feels like that's a pretty solid kind of way to shake out the maps.
Yeah, I mean, Optic is just looking to survive until Cash. That's going to be their big thing right at the end there. That's what they want, especially because, I mean, this is the crazy thing, though. I actually think that North is a little bit better on Cash than we might expect, and I actually think Optic is better on Nuke.
We don't ever see them play it, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just with the amount of skill that's on that team, they should be able to have a pretty solid Cash. So, I mean, it's still a scary prospect, all three maps.
North and Nuke. Now, I mean, Chad, we'll start with you. This is a map that a lot of people regarding them, to be one of the stronger on. I mean, if we were building a list of strong Nuke teams, where would North slot in, do you reckon?
It's probably top 3.
Top 3. Who else is there? VP?
Yeah, Virtus is in there.
And Astralis, maybe? NIP?
Yeah.
Astralis and NIP are both very good on it.
There you go. So they're in the top 3 of teams on Nuke at this point in time, and so MSL picking it, no surprises there. It is time, though, to back it up with a prediction. We won't be returning in between maps, and so this will be a series prediction. Just for extra fun, why don't we go ahead and go for a map as well? 2-0, 2-1.
Okay. I feel like Optic won that veto. I'm gonna go with them. I'm gonna go 2-0. I liked what I saw from their Nuke yesterday. If they've adjusted and they've talked about what needs to be fixed, they could come out and surprise North here.
Interesting. Okay.
2-0, bit aggressive.
Copy and sponge.
No. Did he make a prediction yet? He's, you know.
Wow.
Oh, my apologies. Wait a second.
2-1 for Optic.
Oh, he changed it. See, he always has to be different, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, splitting it up.
There he is.
No. Two for Optic.
Duncan's here this morning.
I will go against the crowd. I'll say that North will win. I actually think it will be 2-0 for North now. I think Cobble, certainly I think Optic's got good chances there, but the problem is it's not the same Optic, so I can't really put my same faith in them, you know. I haven't really seen enough, so I'm going to say North wins it somehow.
Such a hipster. Okay, giving it to North, and it's going to be a 2-1 split for those predictions. Now, I have just been told that we do have some extra time to talk, so whilst we have done our predictions, we can actually have a bit of an intriguing discussion that I've been kind of chomping at the bit to start, and that's a bit more of a closer look at Hiko moving into Optic.
Okay.
Now, I think it's to some people made sense, to others was a bit of a surprise, knowing that this kind of Liquid project, I don't know about you, but it felt like it was a bit of a kind of Hiko's child. He wanted to nurture it, the whole Hiko-Simple relationship and etc. Now, moving to Optic, I can't help but feel that this is going to be like this is a big play from Hiko. Wouldn't you say, Duncan? This is him, but trying to make it big in North America once again.
This is probably his last chance if he really wants to be in like best NA team and especially one of the best in the world, you know. So this is one of the things I said. Unfortunately, because it's obvious he was like the B side of that transfer. The real transfer was Stanislaw went to Team Liquid. And at that point, there just was a gap where Hiko doesn't have a team and Optic doesn't have a player. So that's why they've even said it's just a trial period. So that's the thing. Because it's a trial period, I think he has to really impress here, either individually or the team has to do well. If the team does well and he's just a role player, that also could get it done. But this is like a big pressure mark probably if he wants to be a top player again.
But I remember when we would be talking about Hiko as one of, if not the best player in North America, and that was a while ago, admittedly.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing about him is he's been so resistant to change his playing style. He's still very, very passive. Still hasn't like really kind of incorporated any new facets to how he wants to play the game. I think to a certain degree he's still relying on that image of being one of the best clutchers, and he has been one of the best clutch players of all time. Even if you add in European players to it, we just haven't seen that Hiko in a long time. And now it's something where coming into this team with the kind of playstyle they had in the last one, if they're not changing how they play to any massive degree after this event, then he's going to have to change his playstyle to fit it. He can't just be that slow-paced, lurking, hang way back and wait till the end of the round to get in the action.
An outdated playstyle for Hiko? What do you think about that, Chad?
Yeah, it's the same thing with JKS. I thought he needed to change his playstyle a little bit too. Get Right obviously is a prime example of someone that was a lurker or a more passive player who changed to be an entry player and a bit more aggressive, and it seems to spice up things for his team, or for a short period of time anyway. I don't know if Hiko can do the same thing as Get Right. I don't think he's as versatile as a player. But this trade as a whole, when you bring in Peacemaker as well, you're supplementing. Stanislaw was a lurker player for Optic, so Hiko can fill that role. Getting in Peacemaker for the in-game leader side of things is also a really good addition. It's good in this event, having the coach being able to speak the whole time, so they can really set a good base here and teach NAF as they go along. But I like the change. Like, it's not obviously Optic didn't want to make the change, but it seems to work on paper. Hiko had a bad game yesterday on Nuke. He wasn't getting a lot done. We criticized him with the shotgun on Heart and stuff like that. But I was watching back the game, and it looked like they had a really rough CT side. They couldn't get their economy going. So if they can start on the CT side, get the pistol round, and get rolling in that regard, I think he'll have a better map.
And staying on the topic of Optic, but expanding upon your mention of NAF in the leadership role and Peacemaker combined, it's one that I know raised your eyebrows, Duncan, seeing NAF take leadership away. Does it just feel like a snap judgment? Like, okay, we've got no stand. NAF, can you lead? Okay, or was there more to it?
It is. Funny enough, it reminds me of Team Liquid before they had Stanislaw. The reason they were switching around the in-game leader role is because no one really is an obvious fit. No one really wants to do it, and so what you do is someone has to take over. So someone just sort of says, I'll do it, but I think the implicit understanding is if it doesn't work out in a month, someone else takes over, So you just give it a try. At this point, obviously, they don't even know if they'll stick with Hiko, so maybe they could just do it temporarily and bring in an in-game leader. This is a possibility too.
I was gonna say, if I had to guess the future a little bit, I think it's gonna be something where after this event, Hiko probably is not in this roster, and they're looking for an in-game leader to come in and fill in that role. Especially when you consider how aggressive some of these players are. One of the big strengths of them is how aggressive they can be. NAF was part of that to a degree, and if he's the end game leader and he's focusing on calling and focusing on having this team organized and he's hanging back, that's a big piece of their front line that's missing now.
I mean, it's probably a bit off topic, but I find that quite surprising, given that how Hiko has always been keen on branding himself. He's like, I'm Hiko, I'm going to wear my hat, I'm going to have my brand and everything, and I stream all the time.
He's done a very good job.
He's done a great job, right? But that just sounds synonymous with Optic as an organization. I remember when they had that video where Hex sat down with like Shazam, and he was like, so what are we going to do? We're going to make you vlog, we're going to make you do this, and that sounds like something that would appeal to Hiko. If he was sat in a room talking to Optic, that's something that I'd imagine would really encourage him to get the pen to paper.
I think it's the other way around, right?
Yeah, I don't think Hiko would be much of like a vlogger, so to speak, but definitely like the entire YouTube, the entire YouTube presence that Optic has. I mean, there's what do the crazy kids do these days? They become streamers for these organizations after they're cut from the team, something like that. So yeah, I mean that could obviously help out for both parties.
I think just when we were talking about the NAF thing about him hanging back as an in-game leader, I was looking at his stats from yesterday. He had quite a few entry frags, right? If he's going to be an aggressive in-game leader, which I like. That was his play style before. He would go off, make these really random aggressive plays and get those frags. If he can continue doing that as an in-game leader, that's impressive. And I hope it doesn't happen where they flip-flop between players in the team being in-game leaders, because I don't think they're mentally strong enough or they've aged enough as players to be able to do that. When you start playing badly as an in-game leader, you need to just take it on the chin, right? And you need to try and improve it and try and work on how you can get better at that, not going away from it and going, I don't want to do this anymore because it sucked now. Yeah. You need to actually make yourself better at it. And I think that shows a good leader, and that's what you want.
So the question, I think, that bounces straight off that is in-game leaders is it often a choice, or is it often thrust upon you when you find that you hit the ground running and you're quite capable? I mean, for you, how did it work for you?
I liked being a leader, right? Like I liked being the voice. I liked being in charge.
Right.
I'm always in my life quite organized and stuff. So the team needed that, and I wanted to be that. So it kind of was a good fit.
Right.
When it happens in this situation, and Naf is like getting thrust into the role, he needs to embrace it. You can't do it half-assed. You need to do it 110%.
Duncan, wasn't that MSL story, or am I being ridiculous? Where he was like, no one else wanted to do it, he did it. And
I mean, in his case, it was more extreme. Like, they would only have him in the team if he was the in-game leader, because at the time, Carrigan obviously wasn't available. He was in Astralis. Fetish had retired, basically. Yeah, there was no one at the in the scene available. Glaive was long gone from relevancy, So basically, that was his route back into Dignitas. So he sort of took it as like, I'll do that. But he had always been, in even his style of play, someone who was like part of the base of the system. Like, there are some players who actually are almost suited to it. Like, I actually think, believe it or not, Smiths could probably be an in-game leader. He spent so much of his career playing with his in-game leaders, like playing a supportive style around them. It's like they almost have half of an understanding of what it takes, because they're kind of working off that guy's plan. And so the thing with MSL was, he had to just embrace the fact that, like, I'm never going to be a top player. In fact, he even said in an interview with me, he thought his career was probably done at that point in time. There was never going to be a road back up, because think about it, if you were just the support player who people thought didn't have much skill for a team that was good 2 years ago, what's your route back into an Astralis or Dignitas? Probably isn't one, So, I actually think the problem with this type of scenario where someone's doing it just as a placeholder is they can get into it, like someone like Nitro Naf, they'll say, oh yeah, like I'm into it, like I'm kind of liking this. But the moment I think they always quit is when you have those couple of losses where it's like you just hit rock bottom. You don't have any answers, you don't know what to do, like it's just not working.
And everyone's looking at you.
Yeah, and then you just eventually think like, someone else do this. Like I want to go up to frag and I want to play my game again, Yeah.
The stress as well, I think, of being an in-game leader is very, very unique, just because you've probably had a million of these games where you feel like you make all the right calls, you make every right decision, you make every right strategic decision, you feel like you outplayed the team, the mental chess game, and you can't always control the kind of individual losses or the individual decisions that your players make, and that's when, as an in-game leader, it gets very, very stressful. So, I mean, just to answer the question, I think for the most part, I think people are just kind of thrust onto it. I know in my team in CSGO, back when I wanted to be the in-game leader because I just simply thought that the rest of my teammates tactically just didn't know what they were doing. That's when also the team just was like, we don't want to play your style at all. So, I mean, sometimes you're thrust upon it.
Yeah.
So,
that's
you
tough.
got the sponge treatment.
Yeah, real good.
It's like, all right.
It's a battle of mental chess between MSL and
was on a
Naf.
team with TM.
Yeah. Two people here on the desk think Optic, one for North in the hipster, that is Duncan, but we can introduce two more and see what they think in just a moment. But first, a quick reminder that you can actually come and join us, as Counter-Strike history could very well be written for DreamHack Masters. Get some of that spicy plays going down in front of you in a historic arena like the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Do be sure to go ahead to masters.dreamhack.com and grab yourself some tickets if you're in the local area or fancy a holiday. So while you're doing that, we'll introduce our casters. Anders and Semler are standing by. Two for Optic, one for North. That may surprise you a little bit. What are you saying, Auguste?
I don't think so. I think this is one of the more even matches that we can have in a best-of-3 format. It feels like both of the teams are pretty much like neck and neck right now.
I don't know. I mean, Danish Counter-Strike is the new thing, isn't it? I'm gonna join Duncan on this one.
Is there something in the water in Denmark, Anders? Is there something going on there?
Winning juice.
Counter-Strike.
And it's delicious.
Winning juice.
It's one hell of a juice.
on it. So
We don't actually drink that much water in Denmark. It's all beer.
What on earth are you drinking instead?
All beer, and that's the national drink.
Beer and bacon.
Tourism.
Yeah.
We're going to leave it right there, guys. Anders and Semler to cast your best of three. Take it away.